name is Belinda Sledge. For our final project for my youth ministry class, I had the opportunity to capture what I learned through in this class about youth ministry and particularly youth faith formation through the eyes of some youth ministers and pastors. I hope you enjoyed this video as it summarizes up, in my opinion, what we learned through this class.
So I'm going to jump right in and ask you, why did you choose youth ministry?
I don't know if I chose youth ministry or youth ministry chose me. I think it was a mutual thing. So the church that I go to is an aging congregation. They describe themselves as aging hippies. And so the youth that I'm working with are mostly their grandchildren, and Craig's daughter, Elise. And so Elise went to Craig and said, I really think our church needs a youth group. And she says, and I want Andrea to be the leader because I'd worked with them previously. And so that's kind of how it started. And I enjoy it. I enjoy working with youth and like they're experiencing things for the first time, and it's cool the things that I take for granted about my theology and stuff. And I get to hear their own little theologies coming out, which is really cool. And their experience of the holy, and it's really awesome.
Great. So that leads me into Pastor Milton when you talked about theology. Pastor Milton, I as well as two other people that were in our group, we did a project for this class and we labeled it, How Can Today's Music Cultivate Faith Formation? So in this class, we talked a lot about faith formation within youth and their theology, those types of things. So being that you are a music teacher as well as a pastor, can you tell me, how do you think that music today interacts with youth faith formation?
I think that music is very much a major part. When we look at the Black Lives Movement, everything that the young folk were involved in, music was a major part of it. We hear that now the hip hop artists are now are coming up with songs that are have a message behind it. And so I think the music has changed, but the message hadn't. And so I think that oftentimes in the church and other faith groups, we're so concerned about the music per se that we often don't realize that the message isn't that much different. And so I think that what we have to do is understand that the youth are really more engaged than some of us are. And we're so concerned about how the music sound. Again, we're not understanding that the message had. And so I think that all of that intertwines together, and we just need to step back and understand we all are going to the same direction. Different methods of getting there, but we're all going in the same direction.
Right. Thank you very much. So the question I wanted to ask you is, how do you promote leadership within your youth at your church? I believe you have a youth pastor, but you are the pastor. So I assume as the pastor that you try to engage your youth to promote leadership and produce young leaders. How do you do that at your church?
Thank you so much. I'm glad I get to answer this question. I try to use the model that was designed for me when I came over to the UCC. One of the things I brag about all the time when I was transplanted in the UCC is we had experiential learning, and we were able to learn by doing. And so it wasn't really it was a safe space to make mistakes and to get corrected. And trust me, I've had my share of correction. But it was a safe space and in love. And so we got a chance to do that. And oftentimes I got a chance to meet people all across the country. In fact, Reverend Milton and I are friends today because we met at a Harambe camp that was a part of the UCC. So I try to bring that back for our youth and young adults today, that they learn by doing.
Our youth are trying different things, and so giving them the space to try, but also come back. Because, it used to be 50 years ago, our parents and grandparents went to a job for life and went to a church for life. And I think that's the reality of where we are. Many folks aren't doing anything for life. And I think that what we have to do is we have to create that space an opportunity. Like, most of our churches, we are dealing with folks who are not coming back. Not only just our youth, but our older folks as well. And so I think what we have to do, not only with the youth, is be creative to say, okay, go and try, and you have a good foundation, but go and seek and know that the Lord is with you. But what is the Lord calling you to do? And also,
I went and worked on my doctorate, which my doctorate degree focuses on bridging generational gaps. I worked I served at Bethel, as well as working on my doctorate during that time at United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio. And so I did a lot of research on that as far as bridging that gap, because what I did discover was that there were a lot of young people who were leaving the church, not leaving God, but leaving the church because of some of the methods were not relevant to some of the young people and what have you. And I knew and understood that young people are valuable, they're important, and they have as much to offer as any other generation. And so I was intentional about, as far as retaining that generation and creating ministries that is relevant to the need, because one of the things I wanted to focus on, or one of the things I did focus on, was to establish a foundation for building the Christian character, the moral values and behaviors for our young people, so that they'll be able to function as well as to communicate and express their faith in God through the purpose that has been assigned to them.
Although we emphasize youth, we want to be clear that we understand that you can't depend on necessarily youth to actually grow churches, because youth attend college, they get older, they move. Youth can be so transient. And so you have to do youth ministry in such a way that where you are providing a service for their parents, or you're providing a service for the family, the whole of the family, as you are trying to provide outreach to youth as well. So we have been doing outreach as a means to reach families and parents within the Genesis community, as well as throughout East Greensboro and Greensboro at large.
Reverend Brinson, one of the other things that we talked about in our class was, do we think that the foundation that we're setting within our youth ministry for our young people, do we think that that will actually ground them, as far as we mentioned, going off to college and the things that they encounter in college? Do you think that the youth ministry, particularly here at Genesis, will help to ground their beliefs, so that when they do go off to college or go off to these places, that they will remember the faith development that you have instilled in them at Genesis?
Well, that certainly is the hope. I think that our focus is, and our mission is to, we've shifted, because I think sometimes we have an idea of what we believe the foundation is, and we don't really take into account the needs or the faith needs of a new generation of folks who are trying to deal and wrestle with faith in a world that is vastly different from previous generations. So, it's been a blessing that I had the opportunity to have theological training, to where I am hoping that I'm helping them to develop 21st century faith.
As we can see from the video, there are various opinions of youth ministry, what it takes to form faith within youth, and how leaders should interact with youth. This class was all about all of those, but I must say that the book that resonated with me the most during this class was called Growing Young by Kara Powell, Jake Mulder, and Brad Griffin. One of the passages in the book said, when we refer to keys, we mean the capabilities, power, and access of leaders that carry the potential to empower young people. By key chain leaders, we mean pastoral and congregational leaders who are acutely aware of the keys on their key chain. What I took from this is that in leadership, being a youth leader, that one must be able to identify with youth, meaning that they are warm, they are inviting, and they are aware of things that are happening in youth today. They also know that it's important to be able to trust youth in leadership, meaning to give them the key roles that will make them leaders for our future.
Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. 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 Amen.